بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of the Prophet Yusuf's life based on the Qur'an and to some extent Hadith. So we reached the point that they finally made the decision to put Yusuf in prison, despite the fact that he was innocent, but because the news had spread and it was a kind of disgrace and shame for Aziz of Misr that his wife was involved. So they thought maybe by putting him in prison for some time, they can make sure that people forget the whole thing. So when he was in prison, then something very important happened. Of course, there were many important things, but something in particular Qur'an mentions is that there were two people who used to work for the leader or king of Egypt, and they were put in prison because of some charges. So if we go to Surah Yusuf verse 36, please, we will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that two young people. Can you also show the Arabic with the English on the side, like, yeah. If we, I don't know how I. Yes. If we can have the Quran on the main screen, maybe the view, would be easier. Verse 36. It's better, thank you. Ahsant. So, yeah, Surah Yusuf. This is Surah Yusuf? No, chapter 12. It's Yunus. Yusuf, yeah. 36, please. وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ. So two young people entered prison with Yusuf. And these two young people had dreams. And because they found Yusuf in prison to be very special, a pious person, person very wise, very knowledgeable. He was not like an ordinary prisoner. So they thought to ask Yusuf to interpret their dreams. it is said that one of them used to be in charge of the kitchen, preparing food for the king, and the other one was responsible for like drinks. So one of them said, I had the dream that I am squeezing grapes to make wine. أعصر خمرة. If you want to translate literally, it means I am squeezing wine. But here, khamr doesn't mean wine. This is majaz. It's actually a classic example in ilm al-balagha for majaz, when something is used باعتبار ما يؤول. When something is going to become something else, it can be used in that way here. So grape juice is going to become wine. So instead of saying grape juice, it said wine. This is majaz. So it's very simple way of saying that I'm squeezing grape and then making it into wine. The other person said, in my dream I saw myself carrying above my head some bread, and birds are eating from that bread. So please inform us about the interpretation of these dreams. إِنَّا نَرَاكَ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. We find you to be one of the benefactors, one of the people who do good actions. You are a nice person. So this is why we are mentioning these dreams to you. Yusuf alayhi salam didn't give them the interpretation right away, but also didn't keep them waiting and saying, okay, let me tell you whether I can give you answer or not. He said, قَالَ لَا يَأْتِيكُمَا طَعَامٌ تُرْزَقَانِهِ. Next ayah, please. إِلَّا نَبَّأْتُكُمَا بِتَعْوِيلِهِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَأْتِيَكُمَا. Before your next meal comes, I will inform you about the interpretation of your dreams. So it's a matter of maybe a few hours. ذَلِكَ مِمَّا عَلَّمَنِي رَبِّي. I am not going to guess. This is the knowledge that my Lord has given me. And he used this opportunity to talk about Tawheed. Now that they are listening to him, maybe after dream they will be too emotional and would not listen properly. So he used this time to talk about Tawheed and awaken their sense of Tawheed. He said, إِنِّي تَرَكْتُ مِلَّةَ قَوْمٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ كَافِرُونَ. I have renounced, I have left, not in the sense that I was one of them and then left, came out. No, means I renounced, I didn't go for this option. I left this option, not in the sense that I was in that. No, in the sense that I left it as an option. What did he leave? The millah. Millah means sunnah, the tradition, the path of the people who don't believe in God and don't believe in the hereafter. Meaning in Canaan or in Egypt, or both. And then, if you go to the next ayah, then he introduced himself as progeny of Prophet Ibrahim, Ishaq, and Yaqub. He introduced to them these great messengers of Allah and these great prophets, and that there is another path which I followed. وَاتَّبَعْتُ مِلَّةَ آبَائِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. I followed the path of my fathers, Ibrahim, Ishaq, and Yaqub. Yaqub is his immediate father, Ishaq is his grandfather, and Ibrahim is grandfather. ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله من شيء. It's not for us to associate any partner to God. ذلك من فضل الله علينا وعلى الناس. This is Allah's favor upon us and upon people. ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. Unfortunately, most of people are not grateful to God. So, you see, he tried to use this opportunity to educate them, to preach to them, maybe to see if their sense of lordship of Allah and servitude to Him would be reactivated. And then when he gave them, good preparation, he asked them the question, Ya sahibay as-sijn. Oh, my companions in prison. These two, sahibay is musanna, it means two sahib, two companions. أَأَرْبَابٌ مُتَفَرِّقُونَ خَيْرٌ أَمِ اللَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. Is it better that we have many lords who are themselves divided, they ask for different things, or to have one God? ما تعبدون من دونه إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم. Other than Allah, you are not worshipping except things that are just names without reality. You and your fathers have called them with names. ما أنزل الله بها من. So they don't have any authority. إن الحكم لله أمر ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه. Allah has commanded that you don't worship or serve anyone other than Him. ذلك الدين القيم. This is the upright religion. Dinul Qayyim, Dinul Qayyima is a kind of expression. This is, very important in the Qur'an. فأقم وجهك للدين حنيفا فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها ذلك دين القيم. Or وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين حنفاء ويقيموا الصلاة ويؤتوا الزكاة وذلك دين القيم, something like this in Surah Bayyana. So this is what Yusuf alayhi salam tried to do. And then he gave them the interpretation. So if we can go to the verse 41, please. Ya sahibay as-sijn. All my companions in prison, or my mates in prison, two people. أما أحدكما فيسقي ربه خمرا. One of you, it is clear which one, but maybe he didn't want to say it very clearly because the other one was very sad. One of you, they could guess which one because khamr, it was in the first. فَيَسْقِي رَبَّهُ خَمْرًا. The one who was responsible for the drinks, and he said, I had dreamed that I'm squeezing grapes. He is going to then give khamr to the king, to his Lord. Lord, he means king, not Allah. So it means that he will be released, the charges will be dropped, he will be given the same position, and he will be close to the king. وَأَمَّا الْآخَرُ. But the other one who said, I was carrying some bread and the birds were eating from that, فَيُصْلَبْ فَتَأْكُلُ الطَّيْرُ مِنْ رَأْسِهِ. He will be crucified and the birds will be eating from his head. So they will leave his body out on the cross and then birds will eat from his head. So maybe they were put in prison temporarily till they complete their inquiries, investigations, and this was the result of their investigations and the judgment they made. It is said, this is not in the Qur'an, but it is said that this second one who was in charge of kitchen and so that he's carrying bread, etc., it is said that he said, I didn't have this dream. I was just lying, thinking that this may change the situation. Yusuf alayhi salam said, قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ الَّذِي فِيهِ تَسْتَفْتِيَانِ. This issue for which you were inquiring is finalized. So he was not just someone who was interpreting the dreams. He was actually someone who had knowledge of ghaib, and he could say that this is going to definitely happen or is not going to happen. Maybe changes happen, maybe it's conditional, something can suspend it. So he said this is going to happen. قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ الَّذِي فِيهِ تَسْتَفْتِيَانِ. قُضِيَ, it's finished, it's completed, it means finalized. وَقَالَ لِلَّذِي ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ نَاجٍ مِّنْهُمَا. The one that he believed he's going to be freed, the one who was responsible for the drinks. اذكرني عند ربك. Remember me when you are close to your Lord, the King. Remember me when you are close to him, meaning perhaps mention me to him. Talk to him about me. Why I am in prison? Because he was in prison without any guilt. So this person, unfortunately, when was released, he was so excited, and back he forgot. Unfortunately, sometimes when we are in difficulties, we remember people who are suffering more. But when our difficulty is over, we forget them. We forget sometimes our promises, our commitments, etc. فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ. Satan made him forget to mention this to the king. So Yusuf remained in prison for several years. فَلَبِسَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. Here, what we have in some hadith is that these additional years maybe was a kind of ta'adib, a kind of education for Yusuf alayhi salam. For example, Ayatollah Makarim says, for an ordinary person, it's understandable to try to use different means for getting what they want. For example, asking this person to go to the king and talk to the king for my freedom. But for someone like Yusuf, this was not acceptable. Yusuf is at another level of trust in God, and he should not have tied his hope to this person mentioning to the king. What supports this is some hadith. For example, there is a hadith from Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam which says, according to this hadith, I am surprised about my brother Yusuf, how he asked a creature for help, for refuge, instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or there's a hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that after this event, Jibreel went to Yusuf and said, who made you the most beautiful person? He said, my Lord. Then Jibreel asked, who put love for you in the heart of father? He said, my Lord. Who sent the caravan to take you out of the well? He said, my Lord. When they threw a stone inside the well, who protected you from this so that it wouldn't hit you? He said, my Lord. Who freed you from well? He said, my Lord. Who helped you against the plots of the women, those women in Egypt, in Misr? He said, my Lord. Then Jibreel said, your Lord says, then why you took your haja to a creature, to a person? Why you didn't come to myself? So we have this in some hadith. Expectations from awliyaullah are according to their level. We say hasanatul abrar, sayyiatul muqarrabin. Maybe I say, of course, this with my humble opinion, maybe there is nothing wrong if we are put in the same situation to say this, but we should never put our trust in the means that we are using. Like, for example, I become ill, I go to doctor. I have to go to doctor. I have to take the prescription, take the medicine. But I shouldn't put my trust in them. I have to work, but I shouldn't put my trust in my job or my company or my manager, etc., who are giving me salaries, etc. So maybe the problem was not why Yusuf asked this person to remember him and mention to the king. Maybe the problem was the way he asked. If these hadiths are to be accepted, it means that maybe Yusuf was okay to ask this, but with the spirit of tawakkul. I go to doctor, but shafa comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should never think that they can help us. Allah decides to make them work or not work. In any case, this innocent person, Yusuf alayhi salam, had to stay for several years till the king had a worrying dream. If you go to the verse 43, after some years, after Bez'a Sanin, the previous, please. Yeah. He had a dream. You remember we said one of the things that Allah taught Yusuf was knowledge of interpreting dreams. It was very important. We just saw one incident, but maybe that was not very important unless we say that helped with the second one also. The second dream was very important. The first dream made that person know the qualities of Yusuf, and therefore when the king had the dream, he introduced Yusuf. So in this sense, the first dream also becomes very important. The king's Malik, king, had a dream that 7 fat cows, samin means, with sin means fat, are eaten by 7 lean, thin cows, and 7 green ears and 7 dry ears. He asked the people who used to be, known to them, and some of them working in the court of the king, they had such people to interpret for him. Ya ayyuhal mala' aftuni fi ru'yai in kuntum lirru'ya tamam. All people who are in my court, give me your idea, your opinion about interpretation of this dream. If you go to next ayah. قالوا أضغاث أحلام. They said these are not true dreams. Means these are not dreams that have meaning, true interpretation. These are أضغاث أحلام. These are dreams which are, baseless. These are confused. These are absurd. There is no real meaning for them. And وما نحن بتعويل الأحلام بعالمين. And we are not able to interpret such dreams. It seems they didn't want to say we cannot interpret at all. We said al-ahlam perhaps means these azghath ahlam. We are not able to interpret this kind of dreams. Don't worry about this. Ayatollah Makaram Shirazi says, someone may ask, how dare they were asking or telling the king, your dream is useless or absurd. How could they dare saying this? And then he says, because they wanted to free him from worries. So it was better to tell him that don't worry, this is not something that has true meaning. It was a way to give him a reassurance. But for sure, this was not very satisfactory answer. At this point, قال الذي نجا منهما, the one of those 2 prison mates of Yusuf who was released, who was saved, was not killed, after a while remembered, and he said, I will inform you about interpretation of this dream. فَأَرْسِلُونَ. There is someone in prison, send me there and I will talk to him and bring the answer. So this shows that maybe Yusuf was in prison without being given chance for people to visit him, or he had no visitor, or maybe he was even prohibited to have visitors. But anyway, he got permission to go and meet him and talk to him and ask for interpretation. When he went there, he said, Yusuf, ayyuha siddiq. It's amazing. Yusuf, ayyuha siddiq. In the past, both of them said, we are finding you from muhsinin. But maybe when they saw that it became true, and maybe he was, receiving news that this person in prison is very honest, truthful, anything, he was confident in saying, ayyuha siddiq. Siddiq is very important. In some discussions we have talked about the meaning of siddiq, the most truthful. Aftina. Give us fatwa, give us your opinion. في 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن 7 إجاف و7 سنبلات خضر وأخر يابسات. So that maybe I go back to people and inform them لعلهم يعلمون. Here doesn't say that he said king had this dream. Maybe he mentioned, maybe he didn't mention, because he said just give us this interpretation and I go back to the people. He doesn't say go back to the king. Maybe he didn't want to say that this is the dream of the king. So Yusuf alayhi salam he was very kind, very generous with his knowledge, with his abilities. He didn't say, I don't give you answer, etc. I have this condition or that condition. He gave the answer. قال تزرعون 7 سنين دأبا. Maybe because he had already introduced himself, and now this person reached the point that he says, you are Siddiq. Maybe this time Yusuf didn't give Maw'izah. Or maybe he gave, it's not mentioned in the Qur'an, but maybe he didn't give Maw'izah this time. He gave the interpretation right away. He didn't say wait, a few hours here, etc. He said, you are going to farm for 7 years. There will be 7 years of good harvest and 7 years of famine. You should grow as much as you can in these 7 years and save them as much as you can. Use very little. Save, preserve most of it, but in their own fields. These ears should remain as they are, so that they can remain for many years. فَذَرُوهُ فِي سُنْبُلِهِ. They should remain in the ear. Don't bring the seeds outside, except what you want to use, which must be very little. Then in the 7 years of famine you will eat them. Make sure that you keep some of it for sowing in the 15th year. Because if you finish everything you have saved in 7 years, in the second 7 years you finish them, then what are you going to do in the 15th year? So you have to save some of it for the 15th year, which is going to be a very good year, and you will have rain, etc. You can have seeds for eating, even for getting oil from them. It will be great. When he went back to the king and gave him this interpretation, it was very well received by the king. It is said that in their ancient heritage, cow meant year, in the way that they used to interpret dreams. For them also cow was year. And the way he explained, Sombula, etc., made lots of sense to the king. And he realized that this person, with the also explanation that this person said that, in the past I had a dream and he interpreted this and that, the king was totally now trusting Yusuf. So, وَقَالَ الْمَلَكِ, we go to the next ayah. وَقَالَ الْمَلِكِ إِيتُونِي بِهِ, or if you do was, وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ أُتُونِي بِهِ, bring Yusuf to me. He didn't say, let me go and meet Yusuf. He was not that much knowing Yusuf or humble. He said, bring Yusuf. It's better that instead of we go to the prison, he comes out of the prison to the palace. When the messenger from the king, maybe another person, was sent as a messenger, Rasul, to go to the prison and tell, I am sent by the king, I want to see Yusuf, they will give you permission because they know you. And then tell Yusuf, go back to the king. Yusuf alayhi salam this time didn't accept. First time he gave them interpretation without any condition, because he wanted to help. But now he had to make sure that his honor and dignity will not be compromised. Yusuf said, I don't come with you unless you go back and ask the king about those women who cut their fingers. قال ارجع إلى ربك, go back to your Lord, the king. فاسأله, and ask him, ما بال النسوة اللاتي قطعن أيديهن. What's the situation with those women who cut their hands? إن ربي بكيدهن عليم. My Lord is very knowledgeable about their plots. Why Yusuf didn't go? Because he didn't want to remain as a person who has a charge against him and say, okay, he was in prison, he must have done something wrong, now the king has forgave him. He wanted the reality to be known, the truth will be known. But you see, he is very careful about not accusing Zulaykha. He just mentions in a general way. He doesn't mention any name. He doesn't attribute any crime to them. Just says, what about those women who cut their hands? My Lord is knowledgeable about their plot. negative plans, plot. Nothing about Zulaykha or about any particular woman, and about, I don't know, their satanic temptations, etc. When this message came to the king had no choice to follow it up, or maybe he was himself interested or reminded. Anyway, called those women, ما خطبكن إذ راوتن يوسف عن نفسه. What was the reason, what was your business when you were trying to attract Yusuf, you were soliciting Yusuf? At this point, after many years, maybe they had, now in their conscience, a kind of voice. Maybe they were blaming themselves, Yusuf was innocent, because of us, he's in the prison, etc. قُلْنَا حَاشَ لِلَّهِ مَا عَلِمْنَا عَلَيْهَ مِنْ سُوءٍ. They say, may Allah be praised, glorified. We don't know anything bad about him. Anything bad. مَا عَلِمْنَا عَلَيْهِ مِنْ سُوءٍ. نَكَرَ فِي سِيَاقِ النَّفْي means generality. Not about this issue, about any issue. We don't know anything bad about him. One of these women was, of course, the wife of Aziz, who must be in the maybe very difficult condition, because on the one hand, she had some love for Yusuf, and now she has the cry of her conscience. So the wife of Aziz said, Al-ana hasal haq. Now the truth has come to light. Haq has become clear. There is no point in hiding anything anymore. She realized that perhaps Allah is on the side of Yusuf, and Allah has a big plan for Yusuf. It's enough what she has done. Although Yusuf didn't say anything about Zulaykha, maybe others also didn't clearly point at Zulaykha, but she said, أَنَا رَاوَدتُّهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. Not anyone else, it was me actually that I solicited him. وَإِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. He is one of Sadiqin, one of the truthful people. ذَلِكَ لِيَعْلَمَ أَنِّي لَمْ أَخُنْهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. This is so that Yusuf knows, according to one interpretation. I will mention another interpretation. So one interpretation is that this is what Zulaykha said. I'm making this admission so that Yusuf knows that in his absence I didn't betray him. And I have realized that أَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي كَيْدَ الْخَائِنِينَ. Allah does not guide, means Allah will not help their plans to reach the goal. لا يهدي كيد الخائنين. There is another interpretation that this is said by Yusuf. Yusuf is saying that the reason I wanted this issue to be clarified, I asked for investigation of the king again and asking these women, etc., so that Aziz of Misr would realize that I didn't betray him. This is also another interpretation. But maybe the first is better, because Aziz knew already that Yusuf was innocent. So, Alhamdulillah, Yusuf, after some years of patience and looking after his piety, his chastity, now is known as a hero, as a very righteous person, very knowledgeable person, someone who has knowledge that no one has. He has ilmul ghaib, etc. And now everyone needs him. And the king especially has high regard for him. So, if you go to the next ayah, again, there are two interpretations. One is that it's likely to be said by Yusuf. One is to be said by Zulaykha. If it is by Zulaykha, means وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي إِنَّ رَبِّي غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. After she admitted and she said that I wanted Yusuf to know that I didn't betray, and then she says, I am not going to absolve my nafs and say I don't have any problem. And then as a result, problem would be put on Yusuf. No, nafs is very much commanding to do bad things. إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. Rahmah of Allah can save against nafs ammara, but if God forbid you listen to nafs ammara, then again rahmah of Allah comes for forgiveness, and this is what I expect. So I didn't benefit from that rahmah to be saved from my nafs ammara, but now I ask Allah's mercy for forgiveness. Inna Rabbi ghafurun rahim. It can be also said that it is said by Yusuf. There is another interpretation. وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ أُتُونِي بِهِ. The king said, bring him to me. أَسْتَخْلِصْهُ لِنَفْسِي. Such a person I want to be very much for me. أَسْتَخْلِصْهُ, meaning like exclusively for me. I want to work with him closely. وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ ائْتُونِي بِهِ أَسْتَخْلِصْهُ لِنَفْسِي فَلَمَّا كَلَّمَهُ قَالَ إِنَّكَ الْيَوْمَ لَدَيْنَا مَكِينٌ أَمِينٌ. When Yusuf, received the message of the king and, was brought to the court, then the king told him, إِنَّكَ الْيَوْمَ لَدَيْنَا مَكِينٌ أَمِينٌ. Verse 54. So this verse 54, beginning of it is before Yusuf was freed, and then after he was freed. ائتوني به أستخلصه لنفسي. He said, bring him, I will choose him as someone very close to me. And then when he brought Yusuf to his court, by sending people in bring him, he talked to Yusuf. قال إنك اليوم لدينا مكين أمين. Maybe meaning the past has gone. We have a new beginning. From today, you are someone who has position with us and trusted. Makinun Amin. You have position and you are trusted. Yusuf alayhi salam knew that this is a very important opportunity for saving people, for saving nation of Misr and neighboring nations. and also using this opportunity to do lots of reform in that society. So he himself volunteered. قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم. The king said, you have position with us, you are very close to us, you are trusted. Yusuf, when he felt this is the way to do good things and it was necessary, he said, make me responsible for the treasures of the country. إني حفيظ عليم. I know how to preserve them, look after them, not let them be wasted or stolen, etc. And I have knowledge. These are two important qualities for people who want to occupy such positions. وَكَذَلِكَ. Of course, there are also opinions that maybe he was given the position of Aziz of Misr, but maybe that was another time. At the moment, what is sure is at least he was in charge of the treasure, but with some extended power. It's not that he was just waiting for them to send money to him. All the economy, it seems, was in hand, including farming was in his hand, because that was the main source of income and economy, and this was closely connected, all of them. So the one who was responsible for treasures was responsible for economy and anything which was related, closely related. وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. In this way we established Yusuf in that land, in Egypt, يَتَبَوَّأُ مِنْهُ حَيْثُ يَشَاءُ مِنْهَا. And his hand was open. He was able to go from one place to another place, to settle here, to settle there. It seems that this is referring to what position he had in prison. He was not able to even go out of the prison. نُصِيبُ بِرَحْمَتِنَا مَنْ نَشَاءُ. We make sure that our rahmah reaches the people that we will, and in particular, وَلَا نُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِ. This is not arbitrary. If someone is muhsin, their reward will not be wasted. And it's not only in dunya that we will have, this kind of favor. وَلَا أَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. In dunya, man nasha. Maybe sometime in dunya this rahmah, this ajr comes late or less. Maybe there's a muhsin that up to end, has to be patient in dunya. But certainly in akhirah, full justice is there, and every muhsin is going to benefit. وَلَأَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. The reward of, verse 57, the reward of the hereafter is better for the people who are believers and have been God-fearing in dunya. Okay, I wanted to talk about the part of brothers of Yusuf going then to Egypt to take food, but I think our time is over. Inshallah, we will discuss this next session. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.